Hi, welcome to China Focus. I'm Karen Chang, filling in for Shali Zhang. Now, last week, Bloomberg News Agency and the Wall Street Journal published their own in-depth look at the blurring lines between China's politics and business world. Now, a lot of the revelations that came out, including the astronomical wealth owned by some of China's political elites, didn't really surprise many people. Still, it provided food for thought for those dealing with China, including policymakers and the business world. And today with me is Jason Ma, and we'll be talking about the implications of this interwoven relationship between China's politics and business and its impact on those dealing with China. So these two articles basically follow a series of exposés that Western media have done on Chinese top leaders. Why do you think there has been this intense interest in this particular matter?
I think it's probably kind of related to what happened this year in Chinese political landscape. One thing is the dramatic fall of Bo Xilai, and the story behind it. His wife is sentenced as a murderer. His follower was sentenced. He has this kind of amazing kind of story behind it. And then another, he's a princeling. And another is the rising of another princeling, Xi Jinping, becomes a new core leader of Chinese Communist Party. So both things happening, centering around a concept called princelings. So this kind of a big background, a new kind of political landscape, really kind of put the princeling concept in the global kind of spotlight. So people suddenly begin to interest in this group of people. Yeah.
And I was looking at both of the reports. They kind of, Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal were focusing on different things. Bloomberg was looking at the basically the heirs of China's 8 so-called immortals of the Communist Party and how they've since, especially the grandchildren generation, have since stepped into the business world. And the Wall Street Journal was looking at the richest people in China as compiled by the Hurun magazine and how a lot of those have key seats in China's top political organs like the National People's Congress. Now, with this type of business and political structure, how do you think that affects China's economy and its policy makings?
I think these two articles perfectly showing one fact from two different angles. Basically, it's almost everyone in China knows this. The who closer to the political power, who get bigger benefit from this economic growth. And this is exactly what is showing, kind of this one fact showing from two kind of perspective. All the principlings, they do have access to all the power, so they quickly became business kind of leaders of different kind of industries. And meanwhile, when you look at the rich people who really became rich in the past 20 years, they are most of all those people who have access to political power. So exactly that's the situation in China. In China, it's not really a free market. It's something very unique. It's something like exactly kind of people who closer to the core power, political power, get the most benefit economically. That's the truth. That's one fact is happening over there. It's still happening, yeah.
And how do you think that affects the policy, like the laws that get passed? Recently, there was this, the internet tightening control. The law was passed to require people to basically provide their real names when they're signing up to ISPs. And a lot of people are saying it follows this recent online exposés by ordinary citizens of rich and corrupt officials, and this law was passed pretty quickly, and like within basically a month of it being mentioned. Is this kind of a phenomenon that we'll see that because of this interwoven relationship between politics and business, laws that will benefit those in the interest groups will get passed?
Right, I guess probably it's not the kind of 100% of reason because of this, but definitely it plays some roles. And as I know, I mean, when New York Times released the information about Wen Jiabao, and New York Times was blocked, and right now Bloomberg, all this kind of foreign news media was blocked by Chinese internet censorship, and also released this law. I mean, meanwhile, there are a lot of things right now happening in China, kind of internet. This called Weibo, which is a Twitter, Chinese version of Twitter, and they released a lot of information, the wealth about Chinese official. So I guess Chinese kind of leaders do realize the internet created something they out of their control. When they making money behind the curtain, they think they can do this without public knowing. Right now, because of internet, because of the kind of all these kind of revealing article from the Western news agents. So all these kind of things became a solid kind of evidence over there on internet. So they do want to have some control of them, all of them, although they know they can't control all of them, but they do want to have some handle on it. Yeah.
And going back to the Bloomberg article, it basically only focused on the 103 descendants and their spouses of the 8 immortals. But in China, the political power isn't just it's not just controlled by those people, right?
No. I mean, I think the Bloomberg article focused on these 8 kind of immortals, which is directly connected to Mao, because Mao is so kind of well known in the Western world. But indeed, I think almost all the Chinese leaders, although maybe the leader itself is kind of somewhat innocent, for example, Wen Jiabao, but you can't really prevent their kind of sons and grandsons really make use of their political influence to make money out of this. And also, in some cases, the leader itself encourages the family to get into the business kind of venue, like kind of like Jiang Zemin. And Jiang is not considered as one of the 8 kind of immortals, but his son Jiang Mianheng built this huge kind of business empire under some investment kind of umbrella of some investment bank like Shanghai Alliance kind of Alliance investment, and he has a huge empires. I mean, it's probably bigger than those 8 immortals kind of sons and grandsons. Yeah. Almost, I mean, basically that's true. I mean, it's not only about the older generation and their offsprings. Almost every leaders, they have their sons and grandsons have some handles on this economic development and get a benefit out of it.
Do you think it's kind of interesting that New York Times has published the expose on Wen Jiabao, and then basically Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg came out basically at the same time with this kind of really, really in-depth look at the wealth of these either Chinese leaders or business elites. When they've reported about it, they said it's from gathering data from publicly available sources. Do you think there's another side to this story, do you think?
I think right now there is a kind of new phenomenon is Chinese political kind of struggle. Sometimes they have to use Western media as a way to release their information to attack their opponent. And so in this situation, my kind of interpretation, in some ways, probably kind of Jiang really want this kind of thing be released, Jiang faction, because Jiang now have no directly political kind of power in Chinese political landscape, but he's really worried about his son's empire, kind of economic empire. And once he totally lose power, his son may be subject to a lot of kind of corruption investigation. So what he can do is he bring all these other people's issue on the table and be known, and that forces the current leader to have this tightened kind of information control, so that when they tighten this information control, his son's kind of corruption or kind of behind curtain deals will also be covered. So it's more like this kind of information when they release it. Although the Chinese leader try to block it from the kind of make sure the Chinese ordinary people don't know, but meanwhile, I don't think that's bad thing for some people, leaders, because now they became a group. They group of people who like use this corruption to connect them together as a kind of a united kind of mafia or something.
And it's interesting. The 2 articles came out. Basically, there's been a lot of calls for Chinese leaders to disclose their wealth. Actually, they're not new. Back in 2006, there were discussions. And I think every time that the political leaders meet, they do talk about it, but they always say like the time is not ripe. Why do you think there is this continued delay on the part of the Chinese leaders to disclose their wealth?
Because they haven't been ready kind of to make sure all the details are covered and before they can release it. I mean, indeed, this is something kind of, they have the rule to release these officials' wealth. They have the rule set up in 1994. Right now it's almost 20 years later, still nobody's really released anything. What's the reason? Because In 1992, that's just follow this kind of Tiananmen Square massacre. I mean, they are under the internal and external pressure to really kind of, they think they can clean up their behavior and make sure. But in the past 20 years, they found they accumulate more wealth, which is more difficult to release than like 20 years ago. So what really kind of happened is they delay to the point where they even don't know when they can release. Right now, they said that they may begin to release the family information in another 18 years. But anyway, I mean, the point is they set up the rule, and they know right now is not the moment that they can safely release what they have. Yeah.
So now with these kind of information out in the public, you know, the relationship between politics and business, for foreign businesses or companies or economic policy makers dealing with China, how do you think they should be looking at this situation?
Oh, this creates a new challenge to all the people around the world, the financial world, because clearly the SEC or all these kind of foreign policies, they don't really require every company release every employee's family background. But this really play a role in a lot of things in China. For example, recently there's a Bloomberg article clearly mentioned one U.S. investment bank recommend his investor bet against a deal, which is the Chinese Development Bank invested $400 million to a pretty bad company. It's called a Harbin Electric motor kind of company, and they think that the price is just too high. It's impossible for this deal to went through. So the kind of a lot of people just sell the stock, and the stock went down 50%, and end up the deal went through. Later on, they found out the grandson, the son of the Chinese Development Bank is it's really kind of a director of a kind of private investor bank, which is facilitated this deal. I mean, he said, and all the investors suddenly realized, okay, now that information should be released, because without knowing that information, by the number, there's no way for we to trust this deal. But if we know that's true, definitely we will kind of bet for it. So I guess clearly the uneven landscape and the kind of a complex struggle between the kind of a mingle between the political power and the economic kind of situation in China created all these kind of new thing in kind of in the international financial world. They need to know something more than they know now to really get a good calculation of things happening in China.
Do you think there's a way for the foreign businesses to get around this kind of thing, or are they really forced to play by these kind of rules?
I think of course, from very beginning, they said that we go to China, do business with them, we will change China, but end up China change them. I mean, there is a law, U.S. law forbidding them to directly bribe kind of a Chinese leader to get a good deal. But now they play the role like by hiring the third generation of this kind of princelings, and a lot of the kind of third generation princelings, they are working for the foreign companies. Now they gain this connection without bribing, but really that's bribing, in some sense, yeah.
So I guess, you know, with businesses and overseas government want to change China, they're really being changed the other way around.
Right.
Yeah, well, we're out of time today, and thank you very much for discussing this topic with us today. And for more on this and other China-related topics, please visit our website at ntd.tv. Thanks for watching.